Welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish, the podcast where we sit down with neighbors, experts, and friends to explore the stories, the questions, and the big little issues that shape life in our town, one conversation at a time. Today we're talking about the future of the RK MacDonald Nursing Home. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish. It's me, Justin.
And this is Anuj.
Hello, good sir. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, sir?
Good. We're recording this on a very sunny day. I can't guarantee that this is going to be released on a sunny day, but it's nice to have good weather out there.
Oh, yes. I can guarantee.
Yeah, but this is not a weather podcast, Anuj. We are here to talk about issues in this town, and this is one we've been hoping to talk about for a while. We are talking about the RK MacDonald.
And long-term care.
Yes, but the RK specifically because something interesting is happening in that.
What is that?
We've got the person who can answer this question. Actually, I don't know your full title. Could you give us your whole rigmarole? I think you're like CEO, president, overlord.
I'm the CEO/administrator of the RK MacDonald Nursing Home Corporation. So that's my lead role.
CEO/administrator.
Yeah.
Terry.
Yeah, MacIntyre, yeah.
That's right. CEO/administrator.
Some people use CEO, some people will use administrator throughout the sector.
Okay. So are you, does that mean you're there? Because I know you as there on the ground doing day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
So you're not just like in a boardroom somewhere.
No, it's day-to-day with, and I wouldn't miss a minute of it with the phenomenal staff and the people that we have. So yeah, day-to-day, Monday to Monday.
And how long have you been doing this?
I've been at the RK probably, actually, fun story. A friend came home last summer. He said, MacIntyre, what are you doing? I said, I'm at the RK. And he goes, oh, what room are you in?
But it's a thing that happens.
Yeah. And you didn't say I'm on the waiting list?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. But I've been there probably 14 years. Wow. And I started there. I was first invited to the RK to set up a rehab program for the residents, which was a lot of fun. Keep it simple, a lot of fun. And then it just evolved over the years in terms of leadership roles. And I had the privilege and the fun to work with Michelle Thompson when she was the CEO. And then when Michelle left and entered the political forum, I was very lucky and honored to be the first male CEO at the RK. And it's been a real pleasure.
So the main thing I think that we wanted to haul you in on and talk about was the fact that they're building a new building out. Well, just give us the details. Where is the building? When is it going to be open? What is the deal with this new building?
And there are a couple of questions around that. And somebody actually sees that building coming up from the door, from the window of hers.
That's right. Yeah, I have some friends who live right across from it. Someone we had asked questions about. We knew you were coming, and people wanted to know. And so most people really do want to know about both the new building and the old building. Well, let's start with the new building.
The new building started, I'm going to say, back probably in 2020, when Michelle was the CEO, and actually Randy Delory was in Stephen McNeil's Liberal cabinet. And government had put out a question of who feels their building may need to be replaced soon. So in those discussions, it was decided that the RK was a facility to be replaced. And so that journey started officially in early of May 2020-ish. And so now here we find ourselves in 2026, and the building is located in Church Street Extension. And so what we did as a steering committee is we basically drove a stake in the middle of Antigonish and then started making concentric circles around it, trying to land the new RK in as close proximity as downtown as possible.
Yeah.
And we met a lot of wonderful landowners, and some, just weren't interested in subdividing and surveying, and which was fine. And then we ended up in Church Street Extension, and one of the things that we talked about back in the day was the town is going to creep out past Church Street Extension, and you already see that now. There's a road that goes across the field just above where we are, and it looks like a subdivision or something is going in up there. So we really worked hard trying to find a place as close to downtown, as close to the amenities, as close to St. X, because we have a lot of student participation. And we ended up in a pretty sweet spot at what is now referred to as 61 Church Street Extension.
Okay, and what is going to be new about this building? I'm assuming it's definitely more modern. Is it larger, more beds?
Yeah, it is. If you were to take the footprint of the new building and bring it over to the RK on Pleasant Street, it would sprawl from across Pleasant Street all the way down across Victoria Street, and from across the RK, across McIsaac's funeral home, clean right back over the Antigonish Manor.
So it's much, much larger.
It's 125,000 square feet. I can't remember what the RK
Compared
is
to
now.
right now,
Yeah.
what is the amount of space you have right now?
Oh, in the existing RK, I don't know. I'm not sure.
It sounds like half, maybe not even.
Yeah, So it's a sprawling structure.
So it's a capital intensive project.
Yeah, and the only real difference is that right now we're home to 136 residents,
Right.
and in the new building we'll be home to 144, and 144 is the maximum size of any new building long-term care facility.
That's like a provincial law?
Cap?
Yeah, they're not going to make them any bigger.
Oh, so this was the max that you could have built.
That's right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So there will be more space per resident in the new space.
So the way we look at that is there's a section of the RK that we call the cottages, and they're 12 years old, and you never see any mobilization equipment or transfer equipment in the hallways there because there's enough room to store the stuff in each resident's room. So the new rooms in the new building are going to be about 2 inches in each direction bigger than they are in the newer part of the RK.
I see.
So they're good-sized rooms, and they're all single dwellings, single resident dwellings.
And will the profile of residents change, or will it be exactly? So how does it work? Who finances it?
Yeah, it's all financed by the Department of Health and Wellness.
Okay.
And on that note, there's two agencies. There's the Department of Health and Wellness, which our own Michelle Thompson is the minister of, and then there's the Department of Seniors and Long-Term Care, and those are the two agencies that we work closest with. And I would say to the public out there, they have been fantastic to work with throughout this project. Fiscally responsible, absolutely, but primarily right now in the design and the new build, it's seniors and long-term care.
Can we, for people who aren't aware, because maybe we're using terms not everyone knows, we're saying long-term care. I think it's a term that has replaced a nursing home. That's what I would have grown up saying. What is the difference between a long-term care facility and, say, something like the Maples, which has independent living and those sorts
Or
of
Parkland,
things?
for that
or
matter.
Parkland, what are the difference between these kinds of facilities?
Not a great deal. Another one you could throw in there is the manor. So the key phrase you used was independent living.
Okay.
That's the big one. And then the next is assisted living. So if you look at the wonderful design of Parkland, on the third floor it's independent living, and on the second floor it's assisted living, and on the first floor it's full care. It's to be a licensed long-term care facility. And whereas in the Maples is all independent living.
Okay.
And they believe they probably have somewheres in their menu some assisted living opportunities.
And what is the RK then?
RK is a fully licensed long-term care facility.
So you don't have any like independent living units?
No. We don't. So of interest, there was a gentleman and his daughter came to visit yesterday morning. They popped into the office, and basically that was their question. They wanted to know how she could get her dad into long-term care. And so basically, to summarize that, there's a number of good documents on continuing care website that really the language is wonderful. It's simple. It lays out contacts and phone numbers and everything. So what happens, what this gentleman is going to do, he's going to contact continuing care, and continuing care will send a registered nurse in to do a home assessment. And from that home assessment, the registered nurse, and probably in discussion with family, will determine whether or not that individual has needs that can be met in long-term care. Mm-hmm. They may be able to supplement them with meals on wheels, or maybe a daily check-in or support with medications or whatnot, but they're independent enough that they don't need long-term care.
Okay.
If an individual is deemed to require long-term care, then they go on through continuing care onto a waiting list, if you will, for a vacancy for a living area in long-term care.
Okay.
So we at the RK, we have no involvement in that process whatsoever.
So that list is out there, and you're not part of it.
It's in government's hands,
Okay.
and we don't know who's on it or anything like that. So what happens, if we have a living area becomes vacant at the RK, we have like 24 hours to notify continuing care that we have this vacancy. And then from there, continuing care, they do their thing to identify who's next on their list. And there's priority levels and whatnot, and then we end up getting a package, and we review the package to make sure that we have the resources to meet the residents' needs, and we notify continuing care of our decision, if you will, and then they notify family, and then everything starts rolling, and we set an admission date, and essentially in that process, we will get fined if our admissions are delayed. So,
right, makes sense.
And we have the resources to do it, and our staff does a great job of it. So it's very rare that we have a vacant living area in the building for more than 2 days.
Okay.
So it works out quite well.
Is there a list that I'm interested about this list, actually, because most of the people at the RK that I know of, they're sort of from this area. Do the lists work geographically? Like I could put my name to be on a list in Halifax, or it depends on where you currently live?
When you get into the process, the application process, they're going to ask you for your 3 priority sites.
I see, and so that will be the ones presumably closest.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And if one of those 3 comes up and you turn it down, then you could find yourself, especially if you're in hospital waiting for a transfer, you could find yourself anywhere in Nova Scotia.
Oh, I see.
So there's a bit of pressure, but it's a healthy pressure that people experience, and moving into long-term care, regardless of where it is, and there's some great people working in some great homes, it's an emotionally challenging journey.
Yeah, speaking of that, when folks are, because there's going to come a day in 2028 when the new building is open and everybody in the old building is going to be shifted over to the new building. Is that something you must have a plan and been concerned about that?
Yeah. So we're working with Colliers International, and they're a consultancy out of Halifax, and so a branch of Colliers is looking after our change management plans.
Okay.
And so one of the fun things, on that is that, depending on construction schedules, if we end up moving in, say, in October, well, we might just decide to celebrate Christmas in October or a major birthday and put some sort of a celebrational thing so families are engaged, the community's engaged, so make the moving in process exciting, make it fun, and create some noise and some music and some food. And so our change management team is going to help us with that and plan for that moving forward. I mean, there's a lot of other things they're going to do as well, but it was kind of fun to focus on what are we going to do on day one.
So Antigonish right now, who might be 65 or 70 right now, in good health, but knows that that day is coming. So how does one prepare to put oneself on that list?
Same process. You can call the 1-800 number for continuing care, and the continuing care nurse could probably come in and turn around and say, "No, you're not even close to being a candidate. Call me in 10 years."
Mm-hmm.
So you and I can't.
Right now, it sounds like.
No.
I'm feeling pretty tired today, but it just seems like that's not enough.
You guys are out.
I'm not ticking the box, unfortunately.
You guys are out, yeah. Okay. Unless you have cash, you guys are out.
What do you mean by cash? Do you have to pay there?
No, I'm just saying you'd pay me to get in.
Yeah, exactly. This is you bribing Terry in this scenario.
Let's talk about that after the podcast.
You got it.
Okay.
So I feel like the RK is a sort of staple of the community at large. A lot of people know people that are in there, but I have a lot of people, and including myself, have gone into volunteer. I feel like family is intimately involved in day-to-day activities. Can you tell us a little bit about this community feeling? Is that something that's been there from the beginning, or you've been
is it unique to RKs? Or
the part A of that question, I would honestly say, is in 1958ish when the Marthas, the sisters, the congregation, when they opened the RK, the Marthas ran it, like gospel hospitality, right? As it evolved over the years, a number of years back, we created what we call our core values: compassion, accountability, respect, excellence, and safety. And so that was a nice continuity of the Martha's presence. Mm-hmm. The other piece to that is around person-centered care, making sure that we hear the voice of our residents and their family. That's what the Marthas started. That's what they would want, and that's how we're continuing on. And so that Martha presence from day one, especially somebody like myself who grew up with a lot of these wonderful sisters, it still resonates with us. It's still there. The second part of your question is that the same in every nursing home? I'm not sure. From my experiences, what I would say is the people that I've met in long-term care facilities are the most caring, wonderful people. And I had a great quote from a friend when she said one day, the CCAs are charged with providing the most intimate of care. And it's so true. So the people that work in long-term care are pretty special individuals, right from the food service staff, those wonderful maintenance people, and so on.
And in general, I think we have heard in the last few years how our aging, population and elders, the numbers are increasing, and we are facing or are likely to face shortages in terms of CCAs and other staff members. COVID happened, and we had major breakdown then. Give us so what are you seeing now, and how do you see the future of especially aging population of Antigonish?
One of the things we had to take aggressive measures. We created our own training program, and the training program, especially for continuing care assistants, is around your prior life experiences. So, for example, if you had a parent or an aunt or uncle or a grandmother or grandfather at home that you cared for a number of years, so you're familiar, that to us, that's the experience. So if you have that sort of life experience, you can enroll in our programs, and we'll get you through it. And we're aligned with the provincial registry. So in essence, we're training our own CCAs on site.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a wonderful, wonderful program. And a big kudos is to our existing staff who will mentor our new people for a period of time.
How many people do you have?
We're at about capacity now for our RPL students. Because when you think of it, if you have a care area that requires 7 CCAs and 5 of them are brand new RPL students, that's a risk.
Right.
And we have to mitigate for that.
Oh, I see. Can't take on too many new people.
Exactly. And so we have a good crew in there that are training our staff, and it's going quite well. In the new building, we had, in the design, we had wanted an education room.
Specifically for training CCAs.
For training anybody.
Anybody, okay.
And so, I mean, we can't call ourselves an education center because of some sort of rules or something in the education world, whatever. We're just going to do it anyway. So we saw the need to bring in our own CCAs. We see a regional need to grow CCAs. Now, CCAs nowadays, they can work in daycare centers. They're working in schools. They're working in hospitals. 10 years ago, they were only working in long-term care. So there's a lot more opportunity for them out there. So by training our own, and we don't, the only vacancies we have now are people that may be out on a mat leave or surgery, and so we can only hire temporary full-time. But we have no more vacancies for CCAs, so we're quite lucky. And that's a humongous shout out to our HR staff and our CCAs for embracing these good people to come in.
That's a slightly different story than some of the other businesses which have had, especially in retail customer service, having trouble finding staff. But it sounds like you have done a bang-up job just as an institution finding CCAs.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about these CCAs? Like, where are they coming from? My experience when I was there was that it was a pretty diverse staff in terms of where they hail from. So talk about what is your average CCA, someone who's interested, and that's continuing care assistant. So for those who don't know, it's not a trained nurse, but it's someone who's there doing a lot of daily basic care for your
So residents. Coming in, say at the crack of dawn, when these good people arrive, they're there in the mornings to get our residents up for the day. And honestly, to me, that's where the magic. You come down the hallway and Mrs. Mac is laying in bed and she's awake, and 20 minutes later she looks like $1 million. Like, these people work magic. So they're getting people up for breakfast. They're assisting a lot of people to have their breakfast, and they're doing their personal care. And once that settles a little bit around 10ish, the staff gets a bit of a break, and then it's mealtime again at lunchtime. So these are the people that they do everything. They do everything. They're doing personal care. They're cleaning the bedrooms up, making beds. They're putting residents' clothes away. They're getting clothes to laundry and back. Anything that you would do, you could phrase as an activity of daily living. Mm-hmm. They'll sit and watch TV with the residents. They'll sit and chat. They might be doing puzzles with the residents. They're moving residents to the chapel and back, or down to the main dining room for bingo. Kim had a crew of the high school volleyball team in over Christmas playing balloon volleyball.
Nice.
And so the CCAs are the center of it. And they move people around, and they're
And
busy
I think
people.
Justin was also asking was that, so what is the profile of these? And they're young,
Yeah, that
old,
as well.
local,
Holy cow. Yeah.
from
Are
outside.
they? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at our Jacqueline did a great job in her human resources report, and we have 118 new staff this year. We have
118.
Yep. And that's all departments across the board. A lot of attrition. A lot of people have moved on. And so I think around 37% of our staff have been with us less than 3 years. So when we look at that and we start doing risk assessments on that and thinking, where do we need to place human and financial supports to support these people, that's what we're seeing. We have a lot of, way back during COVID, we needed support from travel staff. So we got in touch with this agency out of Ontario, and they sent us about a dozen people from Nigeria. And they had the most beautiful, melodious accents. It was just awesome. And that was the start of it for us. And then since then, we've worked with a variety of agencies, some government, some private sector, in terms of immigration. And the loops that the people have to jump through to get through immigration is unreal.
Yeah, we had a whole episode on that.
Holy
Couple, actually.
smokes! But as a result of that, we've got some really cool individuals, and but respectfully, we're in a community of Caucasian folks, and but one of the things, and I suppose it's in respect of our Martha's history, we welcome people. We're big in diversity and inclusion, and we believe that, and we live it, and we show it.
Yeah.
So our biggest challenge is that's a lot of new staff, and the onboarding and the orientation part is tough.
One thing that always comes up, and both Justin and I are newcomers, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And often conversations are around jobs and workspace. Sorry, excuse me. But often, that's not where the life starts or ends. Where do my kids go for school?
Yeah.
Or how do I create community and friendship in the society? Or where do I shop for my own food? How does that play out in 37% is not a small number of your staff members.
Yeah.
Do you have an insight of how people get settled in our community?
We do. Back in the day when we were working with a lot of travel staff, we just continued it. If a travel staff member or whomever was coming to join the RK community, we would meet them at the airport. That's the first place we meet them. And then we get them into town. A lot of times we work together to try to find an apartment or an accommodations for them. Kind of fun. But back in the day when Michelle was with us, she had a van, and she piled a whole bunch of new staff they're new to Canada. It's going to take them around and show them around the place. And it just happened to be the day that one of the big parties at St. FX campus.
Oh, like a St. Patrick's Day or something, or
and
homecoming.
Yeah, some folks were dressed and some not so much.
Oh, I see.
And that was the first experience of some of our new staff. They were new Canadians. They just roared. So we do get engaged with them when they join our staff and try to help them with as much stuff as we can. Like we even purchased the house on the property where the new build is going, and we used it to support new staff coming in. Yeah. Until they got their feet under them. And
so
then
tell us, because in your plan, I read the plan for the future of the RK and the new building and whatnot. I feel like there's a fair amount in there about beefing up staff mental health and also diversity, equity, inclusion. Like those are some things I feel like you don't traditionally see in a document planning for an organization, but there's a lot of emphasis from the RK on this. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I think that reflects who we are as individuals and as leaders. So there's seven objectives under the people and culture strategic direction. And that's a lot, but there's so much going on in long-term care, we can't just negate one or the other. So if you look at recruitment and retention, we'll probably end up blending or making sure that DEI is the governing umbrella of that approach. So that's who we are as people, and that's what we believe in. Yes, there's a necessity. We have a social committee that's pretty busy, which is great. We've expanded the social committee to include a culture committee, and we saw that at Christmas time. And we're celebrating a Christmas dinner where we invite everybody and their dog, and it's a lot of fun. But we're not we recognize there are other religious, cultural traditions that somehow we need to find a way to acknowledge and support those things, which does, as far as I'm concerned, it enriches your environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might have to say every once in a while, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said. Try again or whatever.
It feels like, it's an amazing space and place. And I have visited them and you have visited them, as well. But, are you also victim of your own success in terms of, so much demand that might be coming your way and waiting list is growing? Because, is it true that if you were to get a space, say, in Parkland or in Maple, relatively speaking, as for long-term care, is likely to be more expensive on your pocket as opposed to getting into our case? How does that system function?
What happens during the application process is government will sit down with a representative of the individual or the individual themselves, and they will do a financial assessment, and from that they will identify a per diem charge. And so, if you have a big bag of money, if you're sitting on a big bag of money, pardon me, you're probably not going to be coming into the RK because you will have the pockets to maybe live elsewhere. But as far as our facility goes, government determines that per diem rate per resident, and that's settled between government and the family.
So I'm going to switch gears to some questions that we had from listeners, because we stuck a Facebook post out asking for questions, and the questions I've heard the most in the past year or two, and they all focus around often the same thing, which is what's going to happen to the cool garden that's part of the RK, or what's going to happen to the old RK building. And
Sure.
I don't know if you know the answer to these.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. So, like I said earlier, we've always had great working relationships with seniors in long-term care, and they have a policy called the Replace Facility Disposal Policy, and they've just revised it over the past 6 months or so. And in that policy, what it basically says to a service provider, which the RK is the service provider, that we have three choices: we can sell it, we can retain it, or we can demolish it.
Who is we?
Are you the
RK.
owner?
Now I'll put this in the right consequence or right context. It's the RK MacDonald Nursing Home Corporation.
Okay.
So the corporation owns the building and the land.
Okay.
However, the RK is governed by the Municipal Housing Corporations Act, not joint stocks.
Okay.
So when that was first done in 1970, 71-ish, the municipality of the county of Antigonish and the town of Antigonish are the owners of the corporation.
Okay.
So if you don't have to do this, but if you read the act, there's a number that lays out under Section 12 powers, and it talks about what we can do as a corporation. But then it also clearly explains when we have to reach out to the town and the municipality for approvals to do something.
Okay.
So it's a good document, and that's how that will play out. So we look at our situation back in 2022. We really wanted to stay at 64 Pleasant Street. Mm-hmm. The location, the history, the whole thing. The trouble with that is that there was no place to send the residents while we were going to be going through a very significant renovation. The renovation had to guarantee resident safety. It had to stay on budget, which never happens in a renovation, and it had time constraints. So we got that sad news in 2022-ish or whatever that we had to move.
Yeah.
Because of the current age of the building.
That's right. So we had an enhanced facility condition assessment completed, and that really was the final nail in our coffin. So then we started to mobilize with support of seniors in long-term care, and that's when the land search was initiated. So right now before us, and we have time, our move-in date is summer of 2028. So we have time to go through the process of working with the municipality and the county to see what's the right option. What are we going to do? Are we going to sell it? Are we going to retain it? Are we going to demolish it and then sell the property? So that's not telling any secrets. That's on the government website. You just type in Replace Facility Disposal Policy, and there it is.
So you can get funding to build the new building, but you still retain ownership essentially with this combination of owners.
These buildings, long-term care facilities, are totally funded by Department of Health and Wellness.
So you're not. It's not like you have to sell it to make money to build the new building. It's just part of the organization. But
That's right.
But do you have? So it sounds like you haven't done an assessment of what you plan to do. This is an ongoing conversation.
Yes.
Okay.
And in theory, you might, do renovation and have more beds and more living spaces available in Antigonish.
Yep.
So 136 or maybe whatever the number final may be, and 144 that you have in that place.
Yep.
And that might be one option.
Like a second RK,
Yeah.
RK 2.0 or
Yeah.
3.0, I guess.
Is that what you're contemplating?
An emphatic no comment.
Okay, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you can't say
Oh,
that.
okay. We didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and respectfully, it's outside of my scope.
Right.
But a decision. There's so many layers to it.
Right.
But the community has needs, and the people that are around the table that are studying the options, they know what's going on in this community between our board of directors and the town and the municipality, and they'll do it right.
So town and county council are part of this discussion.
That's correct.
They are actually the main people in the discussion, it sounds like, with the board.
Yeah, the history, the congregation of the sisters, and we're so blessed to have them, was they would appoint 4 members to the board, 4 community members to the board. And then each, the town and the municipality would appoint 4 members. And back in the day, it was always 4 councillors. But they had the opportunity, or the option rather, to appoint some lay people, if you will, from the community. So right now we have 6 councillors and 6 people from the community on the board.
Okay.
And it works pretty good.
And appointed by the town and the county.
Yes, so if somebody from the town or the county wanted to come forward and sit on the board, they would be an appointee from that particular appointing agency, the town or the county.
You want to get on the board, Anuj? It sounds like you're itching to go.
No, thank you.
So
but yeah.
But the Marthas then, because we had an interview with them recently, so they aren't really involved in that way anymore. So they're not appointing board members. Have they stepped back entirely from the running of
No, at this point, they haven't. The Marthas, as you guys know, they're an incredible group of people, but they've maintained their influence for 60 years. So, for example, if we're going to amend a bylaw, it requires the approval of the municipality, the town, and the congregation.
Okay, so they're still in the mix.
Yeah, and that keeps us on our toes as well. That our actions need to reflect our history, our upbringing.
This is fascinating. Just by coincidence, we would be releasing, or we would have released by the time we release this one,
A whole interview. Because we talked about them in relation with the hospital, but not necessarily the RK. So, but what about that garden? A lot of people love this garden, and maybe you can talk about the garden that's part of the RK, and they're wondering what's going to happen to it. It seems to occupy a special place in people's hearts.
Yeah, one of the fun things, and Kim and Mary Partridge and their whole team, Leah and Haley, getting people outside is key. Get out of this building. And so the memory garden is sitting back there. And then there's the really fun garden is the where the gardeners hang out. And we built some raised beds for them that are wheelchair accessible and et cetera, et cetera. So that is a hub of activity. And then you come into the fall and harvest time, you can go out with a bowl and have your lunch. So, it really adds to our ability to alleviate boredom. Even if you're not the gardener with the dirty fingers, just to go out there and sit and chat with the locals. So we have to carry that over into the new build. And so that's going to be a bit of a challenge to do that. And the other thing that we recognize, too, is that most of our residents want to sit out in the front of the building.
Mm-hmm.
Why
Where
is
the
that?
gazebo is.
Well, yeah, they got people coming and going. They're talking. And it's
like a front porch.
Exactly. So in designing the new building, when you come in the main road, that's the first thing you're going to meet. It's a community gathering space, and we want accessibility, and we want our visitors and our family members when they come there to understand that you can pick up grandma or grandpa or your brother or whatever, and you can go wherever you want. And so these gardens, these community meeting areas, and being seasonal in a sense, because we are seasonal, but we've had Ty Wallace out there singing, and we've had Billy Grover's crew out there singing. We've had you guys out there singing. So we've learned that the gardens are so, and being in touch with nature are so important that we got to make sure that we carry it forward.
I want to ask another question and go back to this idea that you mentioned that the predominant majority population here are Caucasians. I wonder, as newcomers come and they age and they have older people and want to access some of these services, how that will play out, or do you have an idea around that? Do you have already an experience of that nature?
Not as much, but I think the process that's in place now will stand the test of time. As far as I'm concerned with it, it doesn't segregate applications based on anything but maybe the time that you came in, that you were deemed in need of long-term care support, and then it's balanced about who are the people that are living in ALC in the hospitals and when a living area comes available. And, you'd like to see, if there's one person from ALC in the hospital admitted to a nursing home, the next one has to come from home. You have to balance that out with what hospital needs are. And so that's our biggest concern is making sure that our admission process is quick to get people in and get people in. But the process itself, I've not heard any grumbling about the process.
No, this is great. This is great. I was more curious about more than anything else. And so for a regular Antigonisher, how much is your outreach to regular Antigonishers? Yes, families drop in. Yes, people like Justin drop in for music or whatever. But for every, what does it mean for you as an outreach to reach out to common Antigonishers?
In terms of volunteers and visitation?
Volunteers or yeah, what would you like Antigonishers to know about our case?
Oh, heavens. We have, on that note, the Kinsmen are huge supporters of our art program, and they're annual contributors to that. The Lions Club comes in. The Lions Club will do monthly bingos with that. We have musicians all over the place that will come in, spend an afternoon. So Kim does a good job of reaching out and saying, hey, we're here. If you're a volunteer and you want to come in and do this, that, or the other thing, we'll take you in. Like I mentioned earlier, the high school volleyball team playing balloon volleyball, that was a hoot and a half. And then you get, like, Ty Wallace is always in, and but at the same time, Kim does a good job of recruiting expertise for storytelling and for songwriting. And for the artwork that you see all through the building, that's the residents doing the artwork. And then we have St. John Ambulance dogs that are so welcome, to bring their pets into the building. And so as far as the Antigonish and the extended community, we'll take, they do have to, volunteers, if they're going to volunteer as regularly, do go through a screening process.
True.
Of course.
Yeah.
But we'll take folks, and it just adds to the fabric. If you think of a piece of tartan, if you will, and all the different colors of the threads, that's what makes up our community, is all these different people coming and going and bringing different things and doing different things. It works out well.
So, we've been chatting for a while. We can wrap it up, but I will give you, as always, the last word. Is there anything that you'd like to clear up, a misconception, or you'd love someone to know something about the RK that they don't usually think about, or just your thoughts on the new building and the plan for the future? Anything? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, one of the things that we're really proud of, and this is for our entire staff, is that we achieved accreditation with commendation. So we don't have to go through the accreditation process. It's a voluntary thing. It costs a bit of money. But it just shows, and our staff is very proud of that. That's who we are, and it was a very high earnings to get on that process. So kudos to our staff. And again, I go back to our staff in long-term care. They're incredibly special people, big hearts. They get really attached to the residents. And if it wasn't for that staff, we'd be in a hell of a situation. So I'm so blessed to lead such a wonderful group of people. That's my credo with the RK is this staff is incredible. And we moved to the new building. It'll be a bit of an adjustment, a bit of a change. In the old RK, we had that big chapel. Mm-hmm. We have two big, what used to be dining areas when residents were mobile back in the day. We won't have the luxury of those big areas, but the architects and seniors in long-term care have done a good job of coaching us to create those spaces within living areas. And so I'm excited for the new build, and I'm excited for what happens to the old 64 Pleasant Street. And it basically, when we created the core values, that's the divisor. If you can role model our core values every single day, we want you on our team. If you can't, we're so blessed with the people we have.
Fantastic.
That's great. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming in and giving us all this information, and looking forward to the new building. 2028, you said, right?
And also the old building.
Looking forward to the old building. Yeah.
No, why not?
Exactly.
What date exactly do you guess in 2028? Like fall?
Well, 2028 is the the construction.
But we never know with time.
never know.
Yeah, exactly.
And but I'll tell you, our project is on schedule, and it's on budget.
Terry, I appreciate you coming in. This has been very enlightening.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
And yeah, best of luck. And I'll probably see you at the RK doing
I
some
hope to see you
shenanigans.
Yeah.
All right.
Hop in.
See you
Thank
later.
you.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Antigonish. If you like the podcast, don't hesitate to subscribe. Just go to letstalkantigonish.ca and click. Voila! You'll receive new episodes right in your email inbox.
This podcast is a labor of love. Please consider making a contribution, small or large, maybe a monthly subscription.
A thank you to all of our supporters and subscribers, especially our paid subscribers through the Substack. You are really helping us to keep this podcast going, and we look forward to expanding it in the future. Let's talk, Antigonish.